Well, as families across eThekwini try to restore some semblance of normality in their lives, one survivor who lost 3 family members in the blink of an eye has been speaking about his ordeal. The Sokela family is one of the 395 victims of the floods, where a father, mother and son were swept away as their house collapsed as a result of the mudslides. Our reporters Ziyanda Ngcobo, Mnisi and Pelane Phakgadi, all covering different angles of the story for us tonight. Ziyanda, let me begin with you. It's really the harrowing ordeals that ordinary people have been through that I think make one really stop and take in the scale of this disaster that has struck KZN. Tell us about the story of this young man and what he had to say to you about the loss of his family.
Yeah, so, I mean, we are now with the Sokela family in Avoca Hills, and they too have befallen the fate that more than 300 people and families have had to actually go through. Well, this is a place where, as we've been hearing through the days, that in the blink of an eye, within minutes, their lives have changed forever. And I'm going to speak to Smiso Sokela. So he wasn't with his family at the time, but his stepmother, father, and brother were here when the mud slid all the way from the top and fell on top of their home, right into their bedroom, and they had to find your brother, Smiso. You had to dig for more than 8 hours to find your brother. Just tell us, when you heard the news, how soon you could get here and what happened.
I heard the news around 3 a.m. We walked here. When we got here, we found people that were already digging. The community and the neighbors nearby were digging inside the rooms, trying to find the bodies. They found my father and my mother here, and when they found them, they put them in a different room, and then it was a very traumatic experience because we had to now find my brother Nduduzo because he was still stuck underneath the rubble, because there was a mixture of rubble, blocks and huge rocks, as you can see down there at the bottom. So it was very, very sad because it was hard to find him because the rubble was as high as the ceiling, so it was very, very hard. That's his bed down there. That's where we eventually found him. The height of the bed, or the height of that block at the bottom there, is how high the actual mud was. So it was very, very sad because it took a long time to find his body. And when we found him, we were hoping he was not here. We were hoping he was out, or he went somewhere, because we really, really hoped, because we had the community here as well praying and singing, because we all were hoping we wouldn't find him in the room, because we were already sad enough that you had already found the 2 parents inside. Their daughter as well was here, but luckily she survived because she was in the other room. But it was really, really sad because this was something. It's even hard. Standing right here, right now, is hard. I'm sure the entire family. It's hard, guys, because it's still his bed there. We haven't done much here to clean it up because we can't do anything. Like, to remove this rubble, as you can see, it's still slushy. If I were to stand there, I'd be knee deep in. So it's really, really. Yeah, it's a very traumatic experience, and I don't wish this on any family, and I know other families are going through a lot, and this is really, really not something, because sadly, the 3 of them passing away at the same time, it's just something. Both the Sokela family and the Lukosi family are very, very much saddened right now, and it's very, very traumatic. It's not something that I wish on anyone. Yes.
I mean, before we went on air, you were explaining just how you also had to move through this mud, and I'm going to ask my colleague Gift Nkosi to show you the mud sludge just from my feet. I'm also, in boots, and it's difficult when you go all the way to my left, and to show you the mud. You were explaining how the mud came from that end right into the bedroom that we were showing earlier on.
Yes, as you can see there from the top, it came down, and since it's a mixture of mud, rocks, and all of this, if you stand there, it's not dry, so your feet go in. You go knee deep when you stand there. And imagine now people who are not professional, people who are saving people's lives. They did a very, very amazing job. I really like to appreciate them, because what they did was this job. Even the fire department came here and they were unable to fully assist because it didn't have the manpower. So the community of Quarry Heights, what they did for our family and recovering the bodies was very, very amazing. And it's something that I don't think that credit should not be given to them. They should get the credit, because even the removal of the rocks on his chest, it was something else, because you found the body, but now you've got a huge rock on his chest. You can't just move the rock by a few people. It needed the manpower, and they really, really did a great job helping out. So guys, yeah, that's just it.
I can see that, standing here is taking you back to what you just had to go through to find 22-year-old Nduduzo. Smiso, I just want to get a sense from you on where to from here. And when I say where to from here, I'm asking because we're still expecting more rainfall. Is there a concern from the family as you try to come to grips with what's happened, that this mud, as you're saying, if I were to step there, it would be knee-deep, that further devastation could befall this family?
I really, really wish there was a way for all of this to be cleaned up, because as the news and other people have said, people need to clean up and make way for water to flow. And how can we make way for water to flow when there's such a huge, because this I think would take 3 tons or take 3 trucks to remove from here. So it's something that really, really needs to be looked at by I understand they are short-staffed and there's not enough resources, but this is something that could be a danger to even the other neighbors at the bottom, because if more rain comes here, it could actually flow further down to the other people's homes at the bottom. So definitely this is something we wish we could really get an excavator or something and just clean this whole thing up, because it's not something, the people who were doing it, they were doing it because they were trying to find a body, but now since the bodies have been found, it's really something that needs to be properly cleaned up, and try and find a way to cut off the water that's still flowing. As we're standing here, we can still feel there's water, a stream of water going down. So that isn't something good for the family and for the house itself, even the structure. Even checking how can a retaining, like there should be some sort of retaining at the top, because if there's no retaining at the top, it means the families at the top as well are not safe, because it could happen that the houses at the top could actually slide down as well. We don't know how stable this environment is right now, so which is why we've also kept it exactly like this, because we didn't want to create any further harm to the rest of the family members, which is why we've just made sure we guard the house, that nobody comes this side, because it's really, really not safe.
How would you want people to know your mother, your father, and your brother? How will you be remembering them?
The reason the people came in their numbers, it was not just to come and save them. It was also because of the people they were in the community. They were people who were helping people. So when it comes to Nduduzo, he was actually running an internet cafe here. He's got an internet cafe he was running here. And the internet cafe was a help to the community, because he was also assisting people in the community. And then when it comes to my stepmother as well, she was also very vocal in helping out people in the community and also providing them with different stuff that they needed. When it comes to my father, he's a very iconic person in this community, because the very thing that took his life is the same thing. He helped people back in 1998 in the floods in Clare Estate, where the place used to be called Canaan, and he helped fight, because it was not hard, because the RDP houses that were given, they actually were, the community there at the time, it was shacks. So he fought for people to find this place, and also he worked with the municipality to take over 3,000 families from Clare Estates, because of the floods there, to a better place and better housing. So when it comes to the fast tracking of the community development, he was very vocal and involved in the community. He was so involved in the community that my home was also a place where people came. I remember back in the day when people had issues, they'll come to him, Mr. Sokela, please call the police, we've got this issue. Mr. Sokela, we don't have water. Mr. Sokela, our house has got this problem and that problem. People used to come there at home, and this is why I'm saying that he was very iconic, and the whole community was here. Even now, when they come at home and they're talking to us, they're all saying, oh my God, like, is it really Mr. Sokela? Because they know the impact that he made, and the impact with his fellow people that he was working with in the community development committee was part of, that they really fought for this place to be what it is today, even helping develop the community. So definitely this is a very tragic loss, and the amount of calls and people that have been coming through, it's very, every time I receive a phone call, I feel like crying all over again, because it's like they want to know what happened to Mr. Sokela, what happened to the Sokela family. So definitely, guys, the people who passed away in this house are not just people who passed away. I'm not saying any other families. It's all about the impacts they've also, and what they stood for. They helped people. So when you help people and you feel helpless, you die when you are sleeping in your bed. That's not something that I would expect. Or death comes, but you never know how it actually comes. And to wake up, to not be able to wake up when you went to sleep because you never thought you won't wake up again is definitely not it's sad. It's really sad.
Smiso Sokela, our deepest and sincerest condolences to you, as the Sokela family and the Lukozo family. As you can hear there, Kathy, the irony is that Mr. Sokela, one of the victims here, had fought vociferously to move 3,000 families from Clare Estate, and they were flood victims in 1998, to move them from Clare Estate to here in Quarry Heights. And from some years later, nearly 2 decades later, he actually was taken by the very thing that he was trying to assist others with all those years ago. So, this family is just one of many families that is still coming to grips with what has taken place as a result of this natural disaster. And, I can't even say they're beginning to pick up the pieces. It's still, many families are in a state of shock, disbelief, being really in a state of confusion about what's going to happen next, especially like here at the Sokela home, where there's still mud right here in the backyard, 3 tons, that Smiso Sokela said is probably here, that would need to be removed. This, as disaster management teams, still have their hands full, and we'll see in the coming days what exactly takes place. There are still many unaccounted for. I spoke to a senior government official, and not only are they expressing how overwhelmed they are, but they also told me that the numbers, they're saying these numbers are nothing compared to what's still to come in the days to follow.
Ziyanda, it certainly can't be easy for the family and even for yourself as a reporter in the midst of the story. Thank you for that incredibly compelling storytelling. From Ziyanda, let's take you to Pelane Phakgadi, who's also in KZN for us, stationed in eThekwini. Pelane, give us a sense of what you've been able to uncover there today.
Well, Kathy, of course, despite the fact that it would be a somber moment from the other side, where my colleague Ziyanda Ngcobo is, of course, in mitigating factors, the ministers spend the day here as per instruction from the president, and Senzo Mkhunu, Stelandabini Abraham, Safigile Mbalula, and as well as, the ministers, all of them, come here and to try and ensure that they do deal decisively with the issues that have been raised, not only by the communities, but of course as far as the hazard is concerned, having been sharply brought to the focus already compounded challenges that are here in the province in itself, water reticulation among them, and as well as bulk water infrastructure. But in that particular instance, the Senzo Mnguni, the Minister of Water and Sanitation, coming strongly in a media briefing today to say that although they have not quantified the amount of money that is still needed as far as dealing with that infrastructure is concerned, work is afoot, and work is already begun to be delivered in some of these areas, and that is water tankers being forwarded to the affected areas. And of course, that in itself giving you a sense that it has always been and has always been a challenge that people will be, especially when you find these kind of challenges, you bring about the water issue coming in at its highest level, and just the hazard has compounded that even further. And of course, Fikile Mbalula saying that over R1 billion still is going to be needed, Kathy, in order for some of the roads to be reconstructed. And of course, as far as the human settlement in itself, over 1.8 billion rand, which is already set aside, and still far too little to try and build about 4,000 units, which will be temporary houses. And some of the ministers, of course, coming through to give us that indication that that is the work that has to be done, and it is going to be done in a matter of urgency, and emergency procurement channels have now been opened in order for the matters to be expeditiously dealt with. So in the next week in itself, over 800 million rand can be applied for. We are told until the 21st of April. That is as far as the grant of informal traders is concerned. So the informal businesses that have been affected, and as well, Stella Ndabeni Abrahams, the Minister of Small Businesses, talking to us and giving us an indication that 800 million rand has been set aside. So all these, of course, the ministers are giving into detail as far as the implementation process that has to be brought forth currently in order to try and mitigate some of the compounded challenges that the people of KZN currently are facing after the hazard.
Pelane, one thing which is clear is that government is going to have to move very, very quickly to attend to the needs of the people on the ground, and as we've continuously heard, to avoid what could potentially also be a humanitarian disaster that is unfolding, especially where the need for water is concerned. Well, from Pelane Phakgadi, let's take you now to Newzroom. This is where we find Linda Mnisi, who's been tracking developments there for us tonight. Linda, good evening.
Good evening, Kathy. We visited one of the centers that is housing displaced residents here in Newzroom, and the stories that are coming out, you can tell that these are not only people that have lost their loved ones, but also their family homes, things that they've always known, all of it gone in just one day. We spoke to one Buliswa Maqingwana, Kathy, who told us that, in fact, she lost 3 family members in those floods. When the mudslides came falling down, her entire home was basically buried in them. Her grandmother unable to make it out, and one of the gentlemen who was trying to save her is also in this very same school. This is Bekisisa High School in Newzroom, where a number of them are kept. This gentleman saying that he got injured because he was trying to assist Maqingwana's grandmother, who was stuck in that mud, but as soon as he saw more mud coming down, he had to flee, Kathy, leaving her for dead. Unfortunately, she passed away. This evening, this lady is unable to mourn the death of her family members because she is stuck in this community hall with no food, no home, and basically nothing. She says she's waiting for help but does not know where that help will come from. While she's there are also other community members who witness all these horrifying stories, Kathy. They also wait for government to somehow give them some sort of refuge or even homes or even food. But what we've also been able to see is how, good South Africans, good Samaritans keep coming forward. While the people, the displaced people wait for government. The Good Samaritans, the South Africans, come and assist. And they've been coming here, Kathy, ever since I got here. They've been coming here, dropping all this food that you're seeing around, not necessarily waiting for any, government assistance, but taking it upon themselves to come out in their numbers to assist in making sure that their community members, their neighbors, are also taken care of. There's a number of these people who've taken their time out in their busy schedule to make sure that they're going to take care of these displaced community members. I'm joined now by Linda Ngcobo. He's one of the coordinators who'll give us a sense then of how things have been. Linda, ngibonge isikhathi sakho. Siyezwa imindeni ilahlekelwe, kuningi nje abantu balimele ekuzameni ukusiza umphakathi. Kulesi sikhathi abantu futhi bathi ba-traumatize. Ngifuna ukuqala ngokwazi ukuthi kuzo zonke lezi zinto ezenzakele nabantu abashonile, iy'ndleko zomngcwabo nama-arrangements womngcwabo wabo niyimphakathi ni-coordinate kanjani konke lokho?
Yebo, ngizoqala ukubingelela. Kwamanje sisazama ukuthola usizo ukuthi basizakale ngalokho, but ukuthi organize kanjani anginazo impendulo kwamanje.
Ngizwile mangikhuluma no Sisubuliswa angitshela ukuthi she's still reliving the tragic moments. Kusabuya kuye makahleli ezwe ngathi kuubonda luthi go, and yonke lento yam-traumatize. Mhlambe nina as abantu eniloko nibanakekela, yizini izinto enizi-experiencile from their trauma?
Okokuqala ngizokusho ukuthi sizoqala ukubonga ngo-principal wasebhekisisa ngokusiza ukuthi abathathe sibabekene endaweni eyodwa ukuze bakwazi ukuba endaweni eyodwa, but siyazama ukungena kubona, ukuhlala nabo, ukuxoxa. Sizama ukuthi imiqondo yabo iphuma nje eceleni, kungabi kulesimo lesi abake bahlangana naso.
From izinto enizizwa bazixoxa, bathini nje mabanichazela?
Kukhona ngisho ukuze ukukhuluma nabo, ngoba even ukukhuluma nabo bakhuluma ngisho inyembezi zehla, kube kubuhlungu, but siyazama somphakathi sama-volunteer even ukubavakashela emakhaya, ubakhombisa ukuthi abekho bodwa, ubasiza sisame nama-local business ukuthi azame ukusiza entweni zokudla nayonke lonto.
Futhi kungiletha my next question, ngoba soloko sifikile la siyabona kungena umphakathi baloko bayasizana, bayasho ukuthi bazobizana ku-create ama-groups ukuze ama-business owners azohlangana ku-coordinate kahle ukusiza abantu. Sichazele ukuthi lokho kuhamba kanjani?
So far kuhamba kahle, siyathola i-support kumphakathi nomakhelwane ebhekisisa, and sinama-camp out-2 ngifuna ukusho ile ela ebhekisisa ikhava extension mase kuba isizansi elindelana ebhembisizwe.
All right, Kathy. That is Linda Ngcobo. They're just telling us about how they've, joined efforts to try and help these community members. You would have heard me asking him about, the trauma that has been experienced by the people that have lost their loved ones, that have lost their homes. And he says it's quite difficult because even some of them tell their stories while sobbing, with tears rolling down their eyes, really. Also when I asked him about how, Matungwana told us earlier on that she still relives those memories. I remember earlier on I was told by how even children are going through the same trauma. Community members, as you would have had, business people coming to this community with these boxes with bread, taking out of their own fridges to come and help those who have since been displaced. This a level of patriotism that we're seeing here as these communities come together during this difficult time.
Linda, Mnisi, thank you so much for that. And I think, it's just a reminder of the fact that the story is not just about infrastructure that has been destroyed or even inclement weather, but it is really about human beings and human lives that have been turned completely upside down, and lives that have been lost, leaving families in pain and heartbroken by what they've had to witness over the last week. Of course, you can expect more coverage from our reporters right here on Newzroom Afrika as they continue to give us more angles from what is unfolding in KZN.